So, if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and begin that process of systematically letting go and remembering who we are. So if you guys are ready, feel free to mute your phones so as not to disturb yourself if you have any extra devices around. Of course, keep your microphones on here muted so as not to disturb each other. And get comfortable. And here we go. As I always like to say, there's no prerequisite for meditating. Nothing has to happen first. In fact, meditation is always happening. Meditation is not a still mind or calm emotions, although those can happen in a meditation. But they're more of the byproduct. True meditation is so simple. It is just noticing. So noticing is always happening. But sometimes we're not noticing consciously, you could say. But of course, we're always noticing. If we weren't noticing, then we wouldn't be conscious. So indeed, all throughout the day, we are noticing. But the only difference between noticing throughout the day, oftentimes, and what we're doing here is we're attempting to notice consciously. Meaning, rather than noting what we are aware of, we're noting what is being aware. The fact of awareness. So rather than giving all of our attention, all of our self to what we notice, what is here, although that can be a good preliminary step, we are equally, if not more, interested in what is being aware. What is that? And even just this, right here, is incredibly empowering. Because rather than being lost in the content of what we notice, we see that we have a choice. We see that each thought can be embodied and as such lived the reality of that thought, or we can withdraw ourselves from that thought and just simply notice it as a thought option, a reality option. And the moment we start noticing, rather than what we often refer to as, in these meditations, fixing or changing, or what I also might say, investing or choosing a thought, the moment that we simply notice instead of doing these things, it positions us in a position of power. The power to choose. The power to see that everything, that each thought is indeed just a thought. The way that I think my life is just a thought. The horrible thing I think is happening is just a thought. It only exists that way in that thought. It doesn't mean that we will never choose that thought again. And it doesn't mean that in some instances we don't have to work that thought out, or fix that thought, or change that thought, or evolve it. That may very well be the case, but also we can see from the vantage point of simply noticing that reality, that thought suggests only truly exists in that thought, by choosing that thought, by giving yourself to that thought. And from this simple vantage point of noticing, you may choose, so to speak, to explore alternative thoughts. Thoughts that may offer a more gentle approach in comparison to the other, more challenging thought you might have. Rather than referring to the thought that suggests hurtful things, rather than referring to or investing in or choosing a thought that describes the pain of your life, the negative situation you find yourself in, we might just observe it, just notice it. Know that you are not what any thought describes about your life. Because none of what that thought could possibly describe would have anything to do with who you truly are, as that which notices. Pure consciousness. The fact of being aware. And so from this point of observation, you can experiment. We can experiment with exploring thought alternatives. What another perspective might be on that same issue. These alternative thoughts become much easier to explore when we remember who we are as that which notices, that which is aware. If we don't first make this recognition, then we feel like we have to really trudge through the mud of this painful thought and the way it describes your life and your reality. And we have to get in there and fix it and change it. And to some degree that may be necessary still. But also, if we can just see the entry point to that thought as being just a thought, in which the reality it describes only exists within that thought, and simply notice it as a thought, remembering who we are as pure awareness. Remembering ourselves as that which gives life, that which, if it wasn't for, there would be nothing there to be aware of. Because obviously it requires awareness in order to know something other than itself. Remembering yourself as that which is innocently and silently aware. And again, it is from this vantage point that we can choose to explore alternative thoughts. And each time we choose an alternative thought, it does reinforce the possibilities that exist within that alternative thought. And at a certain point, after enough evidence, you could say, is collected that supports that alternative thought as being a legitimate possibility, it then can become leveraged as the primary way of looking at this situation, of looking at the potential in the challenge in your life. Causing the previous thought that suggested pain, challenge, or what have you in your life, causing it to be less relevant. This is choosing empowerment rather than choosing a victim story. Just keep exploring the replacement thought, the alternative thought. Each time it's explored, it gets reinforced. More evidence is found of how this alternative way of viewing the challenge in your life could be leveraged, could be true, could be better. But always remembering, you are neither of these options. Life can be interpreted and described in a million different ways. And it's all just a play of interpretation. But you are none of these things. And yet, you are all of them. Because in the ultimate analysis, even though the first stage is to remember yourself as that which is aware or that which notices, even though that's a critical, in most cases, first step, first stage, it does not imply that the ultimate analysis is that you are not the other things, that you are not the perceptions of the world, the perceptions of the body. It does not imply that the essence of the perceptions of the world isn't the divine, which is the same as you, because it is. That is the second stage. Knowing that what you found as pure awareness in stage one is not different than what you see in the world. What you found in stage one as pure consciousness, pure awareness, is what gives light. So it gives life to what you see in stage 2 as the world. How could the world, to say that differently, how could the world be something other than what you are? How could there be more than one thing in the ultimate analysis? So in stage 1, it appears like you, pure consciousness, is something other than what pure consciousness is aware of, such as the world. That's an important distinction to make. But then you can realize what you found yourself to be could not be other than the world. And the world could not be other than what you found yourself to be. For how could there be more than one thing in the ultimate analysis? For it is all imagination. And it is all you. We localize ourselves in our imagination and believe ourselves to be the subject and the world to be the object. Much like a dream. At night, we imagine the streets of New York in which we localize ourselves into the dream character's body as the subject, and the streets of New York and the other people being the object, something other than ourselves. This is imagined. It all takes place in the imagination. It all comes from the dreamer's mind back home in bed. But maybe in waking life, the dreamer's mind is more than someone home back in bed. Perhaps it's the mind of God. But the mechanism of manifestation is the same, just as the mechanism of manifestation in the dream is imagining a dream world, localizing yourself as the dream character, in which is the subject of experience, and everything else is the object. Perhaps this is the same manifesting mechanism as in the waking life. We imagine, or God imagines, us in the life that we live, and we localize ourselves in the imagined body, in which is the subject of experience and the world and others is the object. Maybe this is the mechanism of manifestation. The imagining, then the localizing yourself in a imagined body in which believes itself to be the subject and the world to be the object, creating the mechanism of duality. And from there, that original split continues to proliferate, starting with me being the subject and the world being the object, to the world being external and my thoughts, feelings being internal. And then continuing to proliferate the dividing. We create all kinds of categories of good and bad and evil and all of the categories needed that create a very complex maze then that we imagined and must live what we imagined, must experience, must live. But when we trace our way back, through all of the divisions, all of these categories that we've made, all of these separations, all the way back to that original division of me being a separate subject of experience and the world and others being the object, we find ourselves. Rather than being localized as in the imagined body, we find our nature right behind, so to speak, that imagining. Our nature being I am, pure awareness, consciousness itself, the source, the divine. You are the creator and the creation. What will you choose? So as both the creator and the creation, take a moment to imagine what in your life needs to be seen in a new way. And in some cases, it may be imagining something entirely different, but in most cases, it will be imagining the same situation, but seen through a more empowered lens. Rather than writing yourself into a story, a victim story, we write ourselves into the same scene, but from a more empowered point of view. Where you're seizing the situation as an opportunity. What are the resources? And how can these particular resources be leveraged? What is the opportunity here? And for you, this may be a big issue in your life, or it may be small. Whichever the case, it's just an opportunity to imagine differently. That's all we're looking for. Just an opportunity to imagine differently. We're not promising ourselves any change. We're not committing or committing to moving forward in a very disciplined or rigid way. We're just giving ourselves the opportunity to imagine differently. It's safe here because you know yourself as pure consciousness, as both the creator and the created, both pure consciousness and the imagined human. So it's safe. It's safe here to imagine something differently. forget who you are. It's not as it appears when we open our eyes. It is very convincing when we open our eyes that we are indeed something limited, small, separate. Sometimes unempowered. But this is only what it appears like. Do not forget who you truly are as this open, unlimited, pure awareness. The source. The divine. The creator. In which imagines itself into its life as an individual localized in a body. Then the dividing mechanism comes in and sees itself as a separate subject from the world. And the dividing continues to happen. External is something different from internal. These people are something different from that people. This goal is something better than that goal. And it proliferates out into all these categories. This whole obstacle course of what our life has become. But don't forget, this is all your imagining. Don't forget, you are both the created and the creator. And when you're ready, slowly bring your magnificence, your pure consciousness, back to your creation. Back to the body, back to the world, whilst never forgetting who we are. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, at that point, feel free to take in a deep breath. And open your